The first thing that we need to do is get an idea of what kind of weather conditions we're going to experience along our route of flight. That means looking at the surface chart and looking at the weather system. So it looks like along our route of flight, there is a low pressure system that's sitting over Missouri and Illinois, and our route of flight is just to the north and west of that. So that puts us in an area where we might see wraparound clouds associated with this big low pressure system. This is the graphical forecast for aviation showing us precipitation and also winds at the surface. And it looks like there is ice and potentially snow across our route of flight. And also you can see that the winds are out of the north to northeast across that entire area. We are departing Alexandria, Minnesota, which has a field elevation of 1,400 feet MSL. What we need to know is the freezing level. To do that, we're going to have to take a look at the freezing level panel. Here is the freezing level panel for that particular day, and it shows that Alexandria, Minnesota is in the range of between 1,000 to 3,000 feet MSL for the freezing level, and Cedar Rapids, Iowa is someplace between the surface and 1,000 feet MSL. More specifically, the freezing level over Alexandria, Minnesota is 2,400 feet MSL, and over Cedar Rapids, Iowa is 1,000 feet MSL. These altitudes were determined from other sources, specifically looking at model data, computer model data, looking at the soundings above each location. Information that we need to know is cloud base. Cloud base can be determined from the METAR. Here we have the METAR for Alexandria, Minnesota. Looking at that, we can see that it's overcast at 4,400 feet. But remember, in METARs, that is above ground level, or AGL. So we need to add the field elevation to the AGL altitude given in the METAR to figure out the MSL altitude. In other words, the altitude that an airplane would enter cloud base as it climbs. Doing that, we find that the cloud base is at 5,800 feet MSL. So as the airplane climbs, it goes through the freezing level at 2,400 feet. Since there is no clouds, but the temperature is colder than zero as it gets above the freezing level, we find that there's no ice because the two conditions that you need for icing are temperatures colder than zero and liquid moisture or visible moisture. So as we climb through the freezing level, there is no icing. However, as the airplane climbs through cloud base at 5,800 feet, there is visible moisture, possibly liquid, and the temperatures are colder than 0 degrees Celsius. So that is the first place where aircraft can experience, or the possibility exists for icing as an airplane climbs out of Alexandria, Minnesota. The next item that we need to know is cloud tops. Route of flight shows that in the Alexandria area, the cloud tops are about 6,000 feet to perhaps maybe 10,000 feet. But as we move over southern Minnesota, it shows that the sky is clear until we get to the Cedar Rapids area, where it's showing tops of clouds at about 13,000 to 15,000 feet. And then even closer to Cedar Rapids, it drops down to about 7,000 feet. So there is a layer of icing, possible layer of icing, from somewhere above 5,800 feet in the Alexandria area. the airplane would need to climb somewhere between 6,000 to maybe 10,000 feet to get above the clouds, maybe even higher to stay out of the clouds and also stay out of the icing. The next thing that we need to know is the underlying terrain, or the MEA, the minimum en route altitude. Here, looking at the maximum elevation figures, or MEFs, on a sectional chart, shows that the maximum elevation figures for this route of flight look like to be the highest is probably about maybe 3,000 to 3,100 feet. So we would not be able to descend below that altitude to get out of the ice. Looking at our off-route obstruction clearance altitudes, those are on IFR charts, low en route charts, showing you 3,400, 3,500, I see even perhaps 4,000. So the lowest we'd be able to go if we're flying direct would be 4,000 feet. Below that, there are obstacles. Next is closest VFR. If we have a situation where we're picking up lots of ice, or if we're flying an airplane that is not certified for flight into known icing conditions, we need to make sure that we can stay in VFR conditions. And looking at the ceiling and visibility display from the Aviation Weather Center, it shows that VFR conditions exist in Alexandria, but in the Cedar Rapids area, it looks like it is IFR. But there is an area right around Cedar Rapids, a small area in the Cedar Rapids area where it is VFR. Other things that we need to know the temperature aloft. So we'll take a look at our winds aloft forecast. Here's your winds aloft forecast for that region. Once again, the textual product only gives you certain locations, so I highlighted the areas or selected the areas along our route of flight, not necessarily right on the course, but just perhaps slightly off the course. And you can see that at 6,000 feet along our route of flight, temperatures vary from -5 at Aberdeen to -11 at Minneapolis. At 9,000 feet, actually, it's a little bit warmer in some locations where it's -7 and -8. And if you go up to 12,000 feet, temperatures range from -9 to -12. Here are a couple of soundings showing you what it looks like across that region. This is the Aberdeen sounding. You can see that the freezing level is at about 900 millibars, which is about 3,000 feet. Here's the Minneapolis sounding, and you can see that down low it's rather cold. It looks like there's a strong inversion from 800 millibars up to about 700 millibars. And actually, at about 700 millibars, the temperature may even be warmer than zero. So you might be able to avoid icing if you actually climb up to 10,000 feet. This is an 850 millibar chart for that particular day. It shows you a wide swath of clouds at 5,000 feet, looking at the relative humidity is greater than 90%. Over the Alexandria area, it looks like you've got maybe only about 80% or 70%, but definitely in southern Minnesota and across northern Iowa at 5,000 feet, you more than likely have clouds because of relative humidity is greater than 90%. This is the AirMet Zulu for this particular day. Shows an area across Minnesota, southern Minnesota, and most of Iowa, where you have moderate icing from 1,000 feet to 4,000 feet, starting at 1,000 to 4,000 feet, depending upon the freezing level, all the way up to 20,000 feet. So we know actually that it is much lower than 20,000 feet because we can see that in particular areas the cloud tops are much lower. So that 20,000 feet is really an overestimate. Also, the 1,000 to 4,000 feet, once again, that depends upon the freezing level and also clouds. So you have to figure out at what altitude there would be icing, the lowest elevation where you'd get icing as a result of both clouds and temperatures colder than zero. This is an infrared satellite image for this particular day from Alexandria to Cedar Rapids. We see blue, green, and orange. The blue indicates very cold cloud tops. I think that might be temperatures of minus 20 to minus 30. When you see very cold cloud tops, that usually indicates that there's ice crystals present in cloud. And those ice crystals will fall through the cloud, scour out all of the liquid moisture, and turn the cloud mostly into ice crystals. So when you have very cold cloud top temperatures, that means your probability of icing will decrease. This is the future icing potential for 5,000 feet. This is looking at a 3-hour forecast into the future at about the time that we're flying from Alexandria down to Cedar Rapids. And you can see across our route of flight, there is light to moderate icing across that region. The moderate icing is pretty scattered, but the light is pretty continuous. So at 5,000 feet, it looks like there is a high probability of icing. However, remember, in the Alexandria area, the cloud bases are at 5,800. So at 5,000, you may not be experiencing ice right in the Alexandria area. But as you fly to the south, you may be picking up ice as you fly through those clouds. Here is your future icing potential for 7,000 feet along the route of flight. Also shows light to moderate icing across that route of flight. Once again, remember that the forecast of cloud tops was at points 6,000 to 10,000 feet. So you may be in and out of the tops of clouds, and that's where you're going to be picking up probably some icing. If you climb up to 9,000 feet, your future icing potential also shows icing, and that icing would be moderate, stretching from Alexandria all the way down into Cedar Rapids. And it looks like across northeastern Iowa, there may even be some heavy icing and SLDs in that region. And finally, up at 11,000 feet, the future icing potential shows still that there is moderate to heavy icing across southern Minnesota and northeastern Iowa. Pilot reports across this area, southern Minnesota and also Iowa, show that there are lots of reports of icing. And specifically, the icing is trace light and also moderate icing. And the little symbols indicate most of that icing is rime. Also, you can see the altitudes at which icing was reported, and you can see that it stretches anywhere from 3,500 feet all the way up to approximately 15,500 feet in one location. Sometimes it's helpful to look at the textual pilot reports to provide you more information. In other words, bases and tops of icing and also temperatures. So looking at these are from around the Minneapolis area on this particular day, and you can see the temperatures vary. There's an aircraft during climb. The first one reports during climb, a CRJ reporting the bases of the clouds, 6,000 tops at 7,700 with a temperature of minus 13 at 6,000 feet. And they're reporting moderate rime between 6,000 feet and 7,700. The second one during climb, a Boeing 737, temperature of minus 2, reporting light rime from 3,500 to 7,000. The third one indicating during climb an SR-22 with bases at 3,700, tops at 6,500, and then overcast above that with a temperature of minus 8 at 6,000 feet. They're reporting moderate rime from 3,700 to 6,500. And then over Minneapolis, the next one during climb, a 737 with a temperature of minus 2, looking at light rime between 3,500 and 7,000. Oh, actually, that's a repeat from the previous one. And then finally, here's one during descent, a Boeing 737, temperature minus 7. With icing, moderate rime from 5,400 down to 4,000 feet. So there are lots of reports of icing in the Minneapolis area at this particular time. Here are a couple other pilot reports from along our route of flight. CWA is central Wisconsin, so this is a little bit to the east of our route of flight. But it gives you an idea. Here are aircraft at the first one, aircraft at 5,500, it's an Embraer 145, reporting overcast at 3,300 with tops at 5,500 and a temperature of -5 or -7 at 5,500 feet. They're reporting in the clouds light rime. Another one also is reporting at flight level, let's see, 3,500 feet. It is a CRJ reporting overcast skies at 3,500 with a temperature of -5 and light rime icing. However, closer to our destination, Des Moines, you can see at 4,000 feet a CL30 reporting a temperature of -1, light rime ice from 4,000 all the way up to 15,000 feet. And here's another one at 4,000 feet reported by a Boeing Beechcraft 1900, a BE-9L. Temperature -2, light rime from 4,000 all the way down to 1,500 feet. And then another one around Des Moines, a CRJ during descent, reporting a temperature of -6 with moderate icing between 6,000 and 3,000 feet. And then finally at Cedar Rapids, a CRJ reporting at 2,500 feet, a temperature of -5 and moderate clear icing. So I hope this exercise gave you a little bit of insight as far as how pilots plan for flight into icing conditions.